What if everything you've been told about prehistoric life is completely wrong? We picture cavemen, dirty, desperate, starving, constantly running from saber-toothed tigers, barely surviving each brutal day. That image is burned into our minds by 100 documentaries and Hollywood films. But here's the thing. The archaeological evidence tells a completely different story. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's 40,000 years ago. You are a Homo sapiens. Same brain, same body, same capacity for thought, emotion, and language as any person alive today. But your daily reality would be almost unrecognizable to us. So let's walk through an actual day, not a dramatic mammoth hunt or a heroic battle, just an ordinary Tuesday, 40,000 years ago. Because the truth of how your ancestors spent their time raises deeply uncomfortable questions about how we spend ours. You don't wake up to an alarm. There are no alarms, no concept of being late, no inbox. Consciousness returns slowly, naturally, pulled back by the gradual lightening of the sky and the stirring of bodies around you. The first thing you notice is the cold. Not deadly cold, just that crisp morning chill that makes you reluctant to leave the warmth of the animal skins you're wrapped in. The second thing is the smell. Wood smoke, always wood smoke. And beneath that, the mineral scent of the rock shelter itself. Someone is already awake. There's always someone awake. Sleep in the Paleolithic wasn't like modern sleep. Humans likely practiced what scientists call biphasic sleep. A few hours after dark, then a natural waking period in the middle of the night, then sleep again. This wasn't insomnia. It was normal. During that wakeful period, people tended the fire, checked on children, lay quietly listening to a world that never fully went silent. Because safety wasn't something you took for granted. It was something you maintained, hour by hour, through vigilance and cooperation. Fire management was arguably the most critical skill your people possessed. Let it die, and you'd have to restart it, either by carrying embers from another group miles away, or through exhausting friction methods, so the fire never goes out. Someone always takes responsibility. As flames brighten, more people stir. Children first. They wake ready to move, just like now. Adults more slowly. And here's something important to understand: there is no rush. The entire concept of rushing is a modern invention. Your day is governed by light, hunger, and season, not by the minute hand of a clock. An experienced member steps outside to read the morning. What changed overnight? Fresh tracks near camp. Wind bringing new information. This assessment is critical. Paleolithic humans read landscapes in ways we've almost completely lost, predicting storms from clouds, identifying individual animals from single tracks, knowing which bird calls meant a predator was nearby. And here's the first fact that should stop you cold. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies consistently show that adults spent only 4 to 6 hours a day on what we'd call work. 4 to 6 hours. The rest was leisure, socializing, making art, telling stories, just existing. Your Paleolithic ancestor had more free time in a week than most modern humans get in a month. 2. Your ancestors didn't have breakfast at 7 a.m. They didn't have meal times at all. They ate when food was available, when hunger demanded, when opportunity presented itself. And what they ate would genuinely surprise you. Dental analysis of Paleolithic skulls shows heavy wear from tough, fibrous foods. But those same teeth also contain microscopic plant residues, starch grains from roots, phytoliths from seeds and nuts. Fossilized feces from prehistoric sites reveal seeds from dozens of plant species, insect remains, bark fragments. Coastal groups ate shellfish and seabirds. Forest dwellers ate deer, wild boar, and mushrooms. River communities ate fish, waterfowl, and aquatic plants. They ate everything. And that dietary flexibility was the single greatest key to their survival. When one food source disappeared, they simply shifted to another. No dependence on any single animal or plant. No vulnerability to a single seasonal failure. Fire transformed their diet completely. Roots that were toxic raw became staple foods when roasted. Seeds that passed through the body unchanged became rich nutrition when ground and heated. That single discovery, the transformation of food through heat, may have doubled or tripled the number of plant species humans could safely consume. One of the greatest technological breakthroughs in all of human history, and we barely talk about it. Food was always social. Nobody ate alone. The hunter who made yesterday's kill isn't eating more than anyone else. In fact, he might be eating less. Kill an animal. Share it with the group. When someone else kills, they share with you. Insurance. Risk pooling. The invisible glue that kept bands alive. Selfishness at the meal wasn't just rude. It was remembered. And in a group of 30 people you'd sleep beside every night. Reputation was everything. 2. Hunting gets all the glory. But on any given day, 60 to 80% of your calories came from plants. And the people doing that work operated at a level of ecological expertise that would humiliate most modern scientists. Picture leaving camp mid-morning with 3 others. You're covering 8 to 10 miles of rough terrain while carrying a child on your back. You carry a fire-hardened digging stick, woven baskets, and a stone knife. Gathering isn't physical labor. It's attention. You're reading the landscape like a text, and you've been learning that language since you could walk. A slight soil discoloration means edible tubers below the surface. A specific grass species always grows near underground roots. Your companion stops at what looks like bare ground, drives her digging stick in, and pulls out a tuber the size of your fist. Then she tells your young cousin the story of the plant that looks almost identical. 3 leaf veins instead of 5. That shuts down your breathing within hours. That story is education. The difference between those 2 plants is the difference between dinner and death. Ethnographic studies of modern hunter-gatherers show they carry detailed knowledge of 200 to 300 plant species. Which parts are edible, which require processing, which are medicinal, which will kill you. Your ancestors had the same knowledge, accumulated across thousands of generations, transmitted entirely through story and observation. No classroom, no textbook, just a child watching an elder until knowledge becomes instinct. Your ancestor probably hasn't hunted today, or yesterday, maybe not this week. Successful hunts were occasional high-stakes events, not daily routines. And when they happened, they used something that makes humans unlike any other predator on Earth. We can't outrun almost anything. A healthy antelope hits 50 miles per hour. Humans top out around 15. But here's what makes Homo sapiens genuinely terrifying. We can run for hours in midday heat without overheating. Our nearly hairless bodies and extraordinary capacity for sweating give us a cooling system that no fur-covered animal can match. So your hunters don't chase the antelope, they follow it. Steadily, patiently, for hours. The animal sprints and disappears. The hunters track it at a sustainable jog. It sprints again, rests again. But each time it's more stressed. After 4, sometimes 5 hours, the animal is stumbling, muscles failing from heat exhaustion. Now the hunter's close in. 1 spear throw. It's over. Then comes ceremony, some form of acknowledgement, gratitude, respect for the animal. Evidence across multiple prehistoric sites suggests early humans performed ritual around kills. Then butchering, which is itself a masterclass in anatomy. Nothing is wasted. Bones cracked for marrow. Hide removed in one piece. Organs eaten on site before they spoil. But they're 5 miles from camp with several hundred pounds of meat. 2 runners sprint back for help. The rest build a fire to hold off scavengers. When the whole group arrives to carry the load home, that walk is a celebration. Successful hunts were rare enough to be social events. Feasting tonight, stories around the fire, dancing. Between those moments, tracks that led nowhere. Animals too fast. Hunts that simply failed. Hunting was the occasional glory. Gathering was what kept everyone alive. By midday, camp fills with a sound familiar in any workshop across human history. The rhythmic tap of stone on stone. Tool making was daily survival. That spear point chipped when it hit bone yesterday. The hide scraper is now dull. In a world without metal, you make your tools or you don't survive. Stone knapping required intimate knowledge of how different rocks fracture. Each strike calculated, angle, force, point of impact. Too hard and the piece shatters. Too soft and nothing happens. Your aunt has been doing this for 40 years. Her hands move automatically through the process, reading invisible fracture lines, removing flakes with geometric precision. 1 perfect strike and a long, thin blade detaches, sharp enough to slice through hide with minimal pressure. And everywhere, children watch. An 8-year-old sits nearby trying to replicate her movements. Most attempts fail, but occasionally she takes his hand, guides a strike, shows him the correct angle. In 7 years, he'll be competent. In 17, if he has talent, he might be teaching others. This is how knowledge survived. Not written down, carried in hands and minds, passed forward 1 patient demonstration at a time. 2 after the work, there was a lot of nothing. Comfortable, human nothing. Modern anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies were shocked by how much unstructured time people had. Adults lying in shade, half, listening to conversation. Long unhurried discussions that went nowhere in particular. This wasn't laziness. It was a completely different relationship with time. And then there was music. In European caves, archaeologists have found flutes carved from bird bones and mammoth ivory, some over 40,000 years old. Not crude noisemakers, They have carefully spaced holes producing recognizable musical scales. Someone spent hours adjusting each hole by ear, learning how bone becomes sound. Imagine the first night one of those flutes appears at camp. A note rises above the fire. Someone starts clapping. Another taps a stick against a log. Bodies begin to sway. Music synchronizes minds. When people move together, breathe together, group identity strengthens and fear fades. In small, vulnerable bands of early humans, those moments of shared rhythm may have been as essential as any weapon or shelter. 2. As the sun drops, the world contracts. Shadows stretch. Predators that spent the day resting begin to move. Everyone pulls toward the fire. Gatherers return with armloads of food and wood. Hunters arrive, sometimes with meat, sometimes quiet and empty-handed. Children tighten their radius, pulled in by the same invisible gravity as the light. Beds are made before anything else. This isn't luxury, it's survival technology. Thick mats of compressed grass, leaves, and aromatic plants. Animal skins laid on top, hair side up for insulation. Sleeping spots follow a social map that everyone understands without discussion. Parents near children, elders where they're easiest to assist. People in tension not pressed side by side. The evening meal is the day's main accounting. Food distribution is a performance. Who makes sure the child across the fire gets fed? Who quietly takes less so others have more? Who pretends not to notice the elder struggling to chew? People notice everything. In a world with no written laws, these choices are the law. They sink into memory and become the stories told about you long after you're gone. Then the real stories begin. The day's events are retold and reshaped. A close call becomes a lesson. A moment of generosity becomes a reputation. And then older myths emerge. Animals with secret names, ancestors who did impossible things, spirits that govern weather and luck. These weren't entertainment. They were the group's memory, its moral code, its map of the world, all encoded in narrative, because narrative is what human minds were built to carry and transmit across generations. Above them, the stars turn. Certain constellations mark the changing seasons. The moon's phases align with animal migrations. The sky becomes a calendar, a story, a set of instructions written in light that no storm could ever destroy. One by one, people settle onto the bedding. A hunter stretches out beside the fire, one arm draped over the dog that has decided to sleep there tonight. One of those slightly tamer wolves that began hanging around camp generations ago, earning their place by growling at exactly the right moment in the dark. The sounds of night layer in, soft breathing, distant hyenas, a lion declaring territory, and slowly, consciousness releases. So what did early humans actually do all day? They worked hard, skilled, purposeful work, but only 4 to 6 hours of it. The rest they spent together, talking, playing, creating, watching the world with unhurried attention. They groomed each other, decorated their skin with red ochre, carved small figurines by firelight, sat in comfortable silence, listening to the world breathe around them. Their lives were dangerous in ways ours usually aren't. Infection, injury, childhood illness. Death was closer and more familiar. But within that reality, they had something increasingly rare in modern life. Long stretches of unstructured time. Time when nothing urgent had to happen. Time to simply be awake in a living world, surrounded by people who knew your name, your history, your fears, and would share their last piece of dried meat without hesitation if you were hungry. We've built machines to do our grinding and lifting. Lights that turn night into day. More information in our pockets than any hunter, gatherer could imagine. And yet somehow many of us have less genuine leisure than they did. Less unbroken time. Fewer evenings where we simply sit and watch the world without checking a clock or a screen. We filled the freed time back up with noise. Your ancestors, in a world full of genuine danger, somehow managed to rest, to play, to make music that no one outside their small circle would ever hear, to paint animals on cave walls that no sunlight would ever touch. They found time for beauty in a life that could end without warning. Maybe that's the most human thing of all. The hunt can wait until morning, it always could. For now, just rest deeply. Let the fire die down. Let the stars turn. Sleep.